Tennyson was given Excalibur by Arthur Hannam after his death, and we think he hid it from the disciples. Now, we're deciphering in memoriam, if you don't mind. Think of it as the Tennyson Code.
It's truly sad when a series references something as crap as the Da Vinci Code and it makes you feel like you're watching either an asylum mockbuster or a porno rip-off. This is Bone Kickers. You have been warned. Episode 6 and series finale, Follow the Gleam, opens up with Magweld narrating, seemingly talking to her mother even though she's alone in her crazy little sword room from episode 1 and she can't be writing a letter because her mum is in no condition to read. So what's she narrating about? Oh, only how Excalibur was forged in Assyria from intergalactic space metal that arrived in a meteorite. While she's doing this, Viv yells through the letterbox.
I'm your sister!
Adoptive or biological? Explain. Please. Okay, looks like Magweld's back to business as usual. I hope she eats furniture this episode. Oh, and explain! After the opening credits, we see the first bit of insanity this episode. They have a rich, cultured, aristocratic bastard character, and who do they cast? Dexter Fletcher.
Hello, mate, what's your name? All right? You're on telly, don't be scared.
He was also the twat in the wheelchair in the Doom movie. He is the original, irritating, working-class Mockney actor. This is like casting Hugh Grant as a hard-bitten drill sergeant from Caracas. So what's Dexter up to? Oh, just financing a year-long archaeological dig with his second-in-command. Brutus from Rome here. Oh, I hope there's no backstabbing involved. Some comedically rural guys come in. They're part of a local historical society and are helping out on the dig. But Dexter won't have them working anywhere near him and so puts them to work in a smaller field. Far, far away where their rural accents won't distract him from the important business of sipping wine or whipping houseboys. So we then cut to Magweld's mother, who's in a mental hospital. She's drawing spirals. Nothing but spirals. Now, this won't make much sense to most of you, but here's a clip from Uzumaki, a Japanese film about a town under attack by evil spirals.
Madame Uzumaki to you.
Magweld then gets vaguely incestuous.
Did you know how lucky you were to watch your child fall in love with something you loved?
She then has a one-sided conversation with her mother that's so loud and so weird that the nurse comes over. Sensing that she won't be allowed to hit her mum with her book, she storms out, and then this happens.
Let's go see Granny.
Now notice how the mask changes between shots. The first mask is worn by the bad guys of the episode, a secret society made up of people who spend their nights with their eyes wide shut. But Magweld's not come across that secret society yet, so why is it like that for that one shot? Unless she has an all-purpose fear of masks like that, which would add another level to my theories about her lack of sanity. And why is the child wearing a skull mask? It's not Halloween. Episode 3 was set during Valentine's Day. Episode 4 was in the middle of winter. And in Episode 5 there was frost in the air. During the day. And in Episode 5 they were in France, i.e. closer to the equator and therefore warmer than England. So, wait, when was Episode 5 set? If it's not set right after Episodes 3 and 4, and they had a cold snap, they'd have to wait at least 6 or so months to get weather that cold again. Oh, fuck that. When is this set? It's light, looks warm and summery, or at least like spring, so it's not Halloween. So why is the kid in a skull mask? And why the fuck is he jumping on strangers' cars? Why doesn't his mum give a shit that he battered on a stranger's car window? What sort of a mother brings her son to see a relative in a mental hospital while dressed in a fucking skull mask? Why is this not explained?
14.7, 15.2.
So Eriga and Parton are doing an inventory of what looks like hobbit pipes and discuss other things that the donor also donated to the university, / museum, / wherever this stuff is going.
He also donated a century-old cognac bottle to celebrate the signing of the Entente Cordiale, which you drank.
Ooh, with a lady botanist to impress her. I have to say she was very cordial.
I think you'll find that all women are that cordial once you've drunk enough, Dolly. So the comedically rural amateur arrives, sans his equally rural friends. He's found something!
Only the greatest archaeological find this country's ever known.
So they show Magweld what he's found.
You are kidding me. It'll be a fake.
But what if it isn't?
Uh-huh. Did you two swap brains at some point in the last couple of episodes? Mrs. ignored all logic, reason, and evidence and declared Boudica was buried underneath the baths? And Mr. Stop making fucking stupid leaps, you bint! It's not like the guy who wrote episode 3, which showed Magwell's casual disregard for evidence and reality, could really be expected to remember all this whenever he came to write episode 6. I mean, he only created the series. Expecting him to remember stuff from it? Pfft, that would be silly.
When have we been averse to putting on our wellies and having a look?
Yeah, come on, we can just go over there. You know, all of us.
All three of us.
So with that rather subtle display out of the way, Viv annoys Mastiff and talks about quitting. Magweld, however, has more dickishness to Dick.
Nobody walks out on me.
Especially not people I ignore! The upshot of this is Magweld insists on Viv coming along to see what the rural types have found, mainly so she can be a bitch to her. So what's been found? Well, it's Bone Kicker, so take a random guess. No, it's not Excalibur. Silly viewers, Excalibur comes at the end of the episode. No, they found part of the round table, but it turns out to be fake. But they still spend 10 minutes on it, but that's not important right now, because we have this moment.
You sad, messed up woman.
Let's hear that again.
You sad, messed up woman.
I haven't been this turned on since I saw Kirk Cameron crying in a bathroom. Ah, that felt good. Now, what fresh hell has Bone Kicker's got to destroy my joy? Well, someone's managed to get into the lab and leave a piece of paper and a book on a table that Mastiff is using and get away without him noticing. Effeminate British stereotypes have terrible hearing. It's in the Bible. Look it up. The paper has a phone number on it and Mastiff rings it, but the guy on the other end of the line tells him that the number's not for him and he hangs up. Okay, we're meant to be shocked by this, but I wonder why the evil conspiracy that's supposed to have done this doesn't have a setup to only allow Magweld's number through. They obviously have it because they work out Mastiff's not her based on the number alone. He doesn't say anything. So they decide that the field used to be Camelot, and rural guy gets kidnapped in the middle of a street by Brutus, who is not happy that he gave the table to Magweld and crew. Brutus gives this order.
Take him to Henry Timberline.
Who? Get off. What are you... I don't know anything else. I'm sorry. Right? I'm sorry!
The guy was mainly calm when they took the bag off his head and he freaks out now. That makes sense. I'm constantly terrified of meeting people called Henry. You might think that, ooh, he can see something we can't, something horrible and terrible and scary, and you're right, he can see something that we can't. A stone box with no lid. That's all. He shouldn't be screaming. Yet. Anyway, even if the table that they found wasn't a fake, this would hardly be the best use of an evil conspiracy's time and money. Unnecessary murders just get you attention. This is something I know a lot about given what the police did to my compound. But since this is the series and the writer who thought that idiots in identical cross t-shirts would be able to wander around Britain with broadswords right after the beheading of a Muslim. Actually, one thing I forgot to point out in my first review. People in recent history in this country have been shot for carrying sandwiches covered in tin foil and table legs that looked a little bit too much like weaponry. How the fuck do they get around with fucking broadswords? So in the lab, they do all sorts of laser tests on the table section and they reveal that it is indeed part of a larger stone table, now just rendered in CG. Wow, that's useful. So Magweld fires Viv. I think this is the second time this episode.
Out! You're fired.
And then we get a flashback to some twat in a white mask, the sort that the kid wasn't wearing earlier. He's part of an evil secret society. All their members wear these silly white masks for some reason that I'm going to try and not connect with racism. They think that Arthur Hallam here, lover of Alfred Lord Tennyson, is a sword they want, but won't give it up, so they stab him. Arthur Hallam was a real guy and may have really been Tennyson's lover. He, however, did not get stabbed by an idiot in a mask, but rather died of a stroke in Vienna. So why does every member of the conspiracy in the past wear masks and in the modern day only its shadowy leader? Because of some reason I'm sure they won't explain. So Brutus and Dexter Fletcher bury a rural guy in one of the dig sites, making sure to keep his watch on him so he can be metal detected.
Leave his watch on him. Somebody can metal detect him in 100 years' time.
Which all makes perfect sense. The lights which make your suspicious activities easy to see for miles around will keep prying eyes away, of course, and with so many people wandering around and digging shit up, the body will never be found. Seriously, burying a murder victim's body in the middle of an archaeological site? What the fuck? I thought this was supposed to be a serious evil conspiracy that's been going for hundreds of years. This is an amateur mistake. Or rather, it would be if the amateur had an IQ of 4. And in case you're wondering what the evil conspiracy is called, here's Dolly to explain.
The Disciples of Good Use.
Worst evil conspiracy name ever. Turns out that Parton knows some stuff about them and tries to get Magwell to hand the table over to Dexter Fletcher. And if something can scare an alcoholic rapist, then of course it must be terrible. Or possibly just larger than the average wasp. The conspiracy is made up of typical evil conspiracy people, the rich, the powerful, the lizard men, and they want Excalibur because it would allow them to rule the universe like father and son or something. So the bad guys get into the lab and steal the table, and because they're archaeologists and laws don't apply, they don't get in trouble. At least it's not just Magweld and crew get away with this shit. So they go to the dig site, see that Viv is working for the bad guys because Magweld fired her, and then Magweld notices something that proves the table's a fake.
It's a fake!
What does she notice? Well, a ring pull on the ground where the table was. They claim this means that the table was placed over it and therefore is newer than the ring pull. I, however, would have come to the conclusion that some idiot threw the ring pull into the hole after they pulled the table out, because archaeologists are supposed to check the ground underneath a find so that this sort of shit doesn't happen. So Dexter Fletcher goes on TV and talks about how he might have found the round table, but isn't really sure. When Brutus hears that the table's a fake, he has Dexter locked up in the stone box, with rats. Almost a night of terror, one could say. Oh, and E2 Brute. So the evil conspiracy has so far killed 2 people it didn't need to by locking them in a stone box tomb with rats. Lovely, but of course no one will think it's weird that a famous multimillionaire's body turns up, chewed on by rats, just hours after he was on TV announcing that he'd found the round table. If the Bone Kickers Universe's police were any more incompetent, they'd be in danger of arresting themselves by accident. And of course, the less said about the fact that he could probably slide the top of the tomb off with his legs, the better. And just in case you're wondering why they mentioned a guy called Henry Timberdine earlier, that's his tomb. I don't know who he is or what he did, but that's his tomb. So then Magweld shows Ben her inner sword sanctum and we get the colossally stupid story of Excalibur. Make sure you're sitting and have a stiff drink in your hand. The sword is created from intergalactic space metal, and when Alexander sacks Babylon he takes it with him, and later the Romans get it when Caligula steals Alexander's armour and weapons. The Emperor Claudius takes it to Britain and conquers the locals, and then Boudica takes the sword and it stays in Britain, mainly being used by people like Arthur who didn't exist. Later on the Saxons invade Britain and some natives flee to France and take the sword with them, and Joan of Arc uses it to fight the English, and the Templars use it to fight anyone vaguely Islamic they can find. And then the Templars are destroyed, their remnants make it to Portugal, where the Portuguese get it, who then trade it with the Africans, which explains why the slaves had it in episode 2. Well, actually no it doesn't, unless the slavers A. managed to defeat the guys with the magic sword, and B. the Africans were able to bring their magic sword with them to America.
I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass 2 years.
So then the sword is lost in the Bristol Channel when the slaves take over the ship. They manage to lose their magic sword even though they were able to carry the ship aground and bury it in a hillside. It's not that hard to keep a sword on board a ship. Perhaps it's more likely that they travelled on the magic sword and used the ship as a weapon. It might explain why they only had a crew of 4 on the ship. So yeah, that's how Excalibur mixes in with all the episodes of the series. How do you feel?
My brains are going into my feet!
Mine too. So then Magweld takes a bunch of pictures off the wall of her sanctum and reveals... Yes, a picture of the mask that the guys wear. They broke in, took down the pictures, and then drew on the wall, and replaced all the pictures in the hope that she would randomly take the pictures down one day when it was dramatically convenient. I don't even need to explain the stupid of this. So then Erga comes up with another suggestion, one that makes much more sense.
You may have drawn that face on the wall yourself.
It's so gratifying that other characters have begun to voice what I've been thinking about since episode 1. She's fucking insane! So Erga compares Magweld's face on the wall to Magweld's mother's descent into madness in her journal.
Look at this. It's like a chronicle of madness. It starts off okay and it disintegrates just like she did. Look.
One golden fish, one golden fish, one golden fish. She's written it on about a dozen pages. What's that? One golden fish.
You walked in there, Rose. I am a fish. 400 times. The funny little dance and fainted.
I'm done talking. Just get out.
Jilly, come on.
Just get out.
So Magwell chucks Erica out, and then she gets hit by one of the worst things that the internet has to offer. A screamer of the mask, randomly put onto a website about Alfred Lord Tennyson. This conspiracy is so shit that trolls use their terrifying symbol for the fucking lols. What happened to you, Anonymous? You used to be cool. Well, at least it's not a Rick. Oh wow, I managed to rickroll myself. Last time I used those words in a review. So yeah, The Mask. We're supposed to find it ominous or scary or many other things that this series can never be. So the bad guys have locked Viv in a room with the masks. We still only ever see the head of the conspiracy wearing one. I shouldn't complain. They're shit masks. You know what would be better? Yes, that's cheap, but I'm a fan of Mask. Its 80s toy-line cartoon genericness is just awesome. And frankly, if the conspiracy worked for Mask, this would be so much more amusing. At least then we'd get a gay robot and fat Sam Elliott in a helicopter.
Don't be afraid, Vivian.
Are you Henry Timberdyne?
So the leader of the conspiracy questions Viv about Magweld and the sword and stuff. Drum-dum-dum-dum drama, drum-dum-dum drama, drum-dum-dum drama, drum-dum-dum drama. So Magweld goes to see her mother, who's still mad and still unable to speak, and so she questions her. And when she still doesn't speak, she sees the rug, and assumes there's some sort of a secret passage underneath the room. The sort of passage that you physically couldn't put in most modern British houses, and most definitely wouldn't be able to put underneath a room in a fucking mental hospital. And of course it's there. Bone kickers, you never disappoint me with your mix of insanity, retardation, bad and lazy writing. I call it herbal. It's very special. So she finds a load of writings from Tennyson. Brilliant! You could buy that in any bookshop in the country. It really needed to be hidden. So Viv finds Dexter Fletcher's body all rat-eaten and stuff, and it even manages to look even less realistic than some of the effects in Rat's Night of Terror. Viv then gets grabbed and shoved into the tomb without any rats, because while these people will happily kill 2 guest stars for no reason, one of whom was an important multimillionaire and famous man, they won't kill one main character. And hey, they don't even bind her legs together, or her arms to her sides. She could kick her way out. So then we have evidence that someone's invented teleportation, because the same guy who locked Viv in the tomb then arrives at Magweld's mum's room. And why has he been allowed into her room? Because being a lead in Rome gets you some very strange perks. He doesn't notice the hole in the secret passage on the floor because Magweld somehow managed to put the floorboards and the rug back perfectly while still in the fucking hole. So eventually Magweld gets back to the lab and Mastiff picks up a piece of paper, a 200-year-old receipt from a beachcomber. He's amused with the term, one golden fish, which of course Magweld's mother was obsessed with. All fish and no fish makes fish a dull fish. Magweld immediately decides that it's a reference to Excalibur that was washed up after the slaves managed to drop it overboard. Of course, she's right. So Arthur Hallam, Tennyson's lover, got the sword from the beachcomber.
Because Arthur Hallam, he lived on the Bristol Channel. And he knew the power of the sword.
Oh my god, Excalibur has the power to open a window on a moderately windy night. Let's look at that again.
And he knew the power of the sword.
It's either that or Excalibur can blow out candles by being in the same room as them. Why the fuck does a writer, even one as mind-broken as Matthew Graham, think that writing that scene was a good idea? Couldn't someone, somewhere, have taken him aside and said this? Listen, mate, the show is great, but do we really need to have the sword blow the candles out? Joyless fuckheads on the net won't like it. And then, for some reason, Mastiff points out that actually the real Hallam died of a stroke in Vienna, not of a stab wound in England.
Hallam dies of a brain clot whilst in Vienna.
Or is murdered.
What?
And because Magweld says it, it's suddenly reality, even though it would be pretty much impossible to make it look like he died of a stroke in Austria when he actually died of a stabbing in England. Why? Because when his death in Austria is announced, some idiotic member of the naughty Hellfire Club is liable to say, "Oh, Hallam, him and I played billiards and set fire to prostitutes on Monday. He can't possibly have been in Vienna because it takes 3 fucking weeks to get there!" So then they find that Hallam willed the sword to Alfred Lord Tennyson, who went on to hide it and write a long and loving poem about his dead lover and encodes the location of the sword in it. Apart from everything else, why didn't the conspiracy just kill Tennyson? They kill everyone else who they come across who's not a main character. Oh yes, of course, because Tennyson needs to become the second most influential writer in the English language, and not even Bone Kickers are going to do a historical retcon that big. And earlier on, there is a scene which I couldn't have been bothered going over, but now I have to, because it showed Tennyson setting up the fucking conspiracy. Why the fuck did he have his own men kill his lover just to get the sword so he could inherit it, only to hide it from his own men? The men who only want the sword because he convinced them that it would be awesome to have! This is broken! This is broken! This is fucking broken! And then this happens.
An 84 Pomerol. A lucky chap.
No, they don't explain why he knows Viv's in there. Yes, they do explain why Parton knows where there is. It turns out they put him in the box years ago to scare him into not saying anything about them. So this conspiracy will kill off famous multimillionaire members for nothing, but it won't kill off some schmo archaeologist because one day he will feature in a shit TV show and therefore has immunity. So they make it back and everyone's friends again, and Mastiff mentions the Tennyson Code.
Tennyson was given Excalibur by Arthur Hallam after his death, and we think he hid it from the disciples. Now we're deciphering in memoriam, if you don't mind. Think of it as the Tennyson Code.
When you can reference the Da Vinci Code and make your audience wish that they were watching it for some character depth or even historical fucking accuracy, you have a problem, series. You have a serious problem! So they use the code and go to Hallam's grave, where Parton talks and Viv and Erica listen intently. Magwell does the digging. If we got lucky, she'd have an aneurysm. They then find another clue and use very stupid logic to work out where to go.
Wells Cathedral.
Wells.
Wells.
I'm not sure, but I think they might be going to Wells. So they arrive, stand dramatically, and then the conspiracy guys are there, somehow, and Brutus gets a subtle nod from his boss, who's too far away from him to actually see the nod, but he sees it anyway, and Parton and Viv go looking for clues in the cathedral. The cathedral, which they either have to break into or someone's forgot to lock up. So Parton uses some classically stupid Bone Kickers logic and works out that if you shine a torch on a candle in a stained glass window, this happens!
How the hell?
The wells are sacred.
And we've a shit version of this. I won't do the expected insult, but I will insult. Tennyson could theoretically have replaced a bit of stained glass with a lens and make that possible. Unfortunately, the lens would also most likely send the light anywhere depending on where you are when you shine it, so it can't be accurate to show you where the sword is, unless you have a marker showing you where to stand, which this doesn't. Anyway, the logic everyone's used in this so far should not have led them to the right fucking place, except possibly by accident. So the sword's in a pool of water and Magwell's suddenly dressed in a wetsuit with a breathing apparatus because all archaeologists have easy access to those things, and jumps in to find the sword. In the cathedral, Viv and Parton face off against Brutus and his guys. It so badly wants to be awesome and epic that I've decided to help out as much as I can.
June the 15th, the year 1215.
Sorry?
Signing of the Magna Carta, October 25th, 1415. Go on.
I don't know.
The Battle of Agincourt, July the 14th, 1789. Go on! A child of 2 should know this. The storming of the Bastille, July 29th, 1588. Defeat of the Spanish Armada, November the 19th, 1863. The Gettysburg Address. Now you give me one date. Just one. No? Call yourself a bone kicker? You know nothing. These were the dates in my head when they buried me alive. These are the 1,000 more like them. The knowledge in my head, the bit of fire in my heart, which you cannot extinguish. Don't mess with me, I'm an archaeologist.
So am I.
they finish the fight and never even mention the fact that an impact by whatever Erga's hitting people with would most likely kill them.
What does one do now? Any thoughts?
How about you hit him with the Morning Star you just used to kill some people?
Oh, Gregory!
Or just do that. So at the bottom of the well, Magwell sees the sword, and it's shining. I assume goblins are nearby. She then gets rid of her goggles because clearly they were getting in the way of her seeing stuff. So they panic because she's not back up, and the guy who did the music tries his hardest to make the music as epic as the writers thinks this moment is. My word, for a moment there I thought we'd wandered into a David Lean film that had been shat on by squirrels. So Magwell drops the sword, and even though there are 3 other people there, no one sees or hears an elderly man in a white mask approach and pick up the sword until it's too late.
Heaven have mercy on my artist.
Oh, it's so light. It's like an extension of my arm.
Now, for all you wonderful nerds, playing the old man is genre legend Jeremy Bulloch, famous for his role as Hal the Archer in the classic Doctor Who serial The Time Warrior. He also played some guy called Boba Fett in a film about an Empire Striking Back or something.
It's a sword. It's simply a sword.
So then Parton reveals that for all of its intergalactic space metal origins, its use by great leaders throughout history, its build-up throughout the series, and its glowing, that it's actually only a sword like any other. The old man doesn't care for this and so accidentally breaks it on the ground. And even though it's just a sword, and is easily breakable, the special effects guys feel the need to put some CGI effects on the breaks, thus suggesting that it is special! Even though they just stated that it wasn't. Even though they spent 6 episodes building up to it being special. So which is it? Is it just his sword, or is it an insanely powerful space weapon? Make up your fucking mind, bone kickers. And yes, that's all the Excalibur action you get. One Mandalorian, 30 years past his prime, swings it onto the ground and breaks it.
A 4,000-year journey. Through all those hands. And it destroys itself in yours.
Is the sword special or not, bone kickers? Is the sword special or not? Guess what? They don't explain. The old man throws himself into the well and vanishes. Not by sinking, but by a fade effect, making it look like he managed to teleport away, or that he's a ghost or something. So what do they do with the sword? Well, Magwell lets her mum hold the hilt, which in a brief moment of sanity by the writer does not magically make her sane, and then the gang get together and throw the sword into the well where they found it. Because the fact that there are another 11 guys in that secret society and Bridges knows where it is means that they could never ever find it and maybe use it to conquer something, because that's why you were trying to keep it away from them in the first place. Hey writer! If the sword's nothing special, then what's your problem with letting the conspiracy get a hold of it? And if it is special, then why are you leaving it right where the conspiracy knows where to find it? And then that's that. It's the end of Bone Kickers. This episode had a cut-down amount of historical insanity, because it had less history. Alas, the insanity wasn't similarly cut down. This is the perfect finale for this show. It's mind-numbingly stupid, insane, and the more you know, the more it breaks you. 6 episodes of shit, epic amounts of insanity, terrible writing, awful history, and many, many other negative terms I can even vaguely connect with everything that this show has to offer. This doesn't deserve a mark out of 10. For the last time. That was Bone Kickers. You were warned. I won't be the last person to suffer through this show for other people's amusement, and for those who follow me, I say this. Ha! It's all over for me! It's yet to begin for you! Ha!